Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I found in my travels. Today, I don't want to talk about a specific book that I read, but rather I want to do the usual wrap-up and TBR for July and August. In terms of what I read in July, I do think there were fewer books that I got to, fewer things that I examined because of a vacation that I went on, but also because I bought the first Spawn compendium and I read through that, and I did it 10 issues at a time. And made videos on that. And I think, as I'll talk about when I did the Spawn book, I don't think I'll do that method going forward. Rather, I'll read the entire compendium and then I'll make a video afterwards. Just one of those, because otherwise it just feels like a lot more work to consume this literature, to read it and talk about it. If I do it like 10 at a time. Of course, then there's the problem. I might make it for 50 issues, it's going to be a long video, but that's probably worth doing more so than talking about it 10 issues at a time. But still looking forward to Spawn Compendium 2. That series is very interesting. And then I do have a number of fun things planned for August, which I'm looking forward to. Some books that I picked up when I was in Canada and Vancouver. So still got to get to a couple different things. But I'm making my way through my TBR. I think there's like 3 or 4 books for 2025. So have made good progress so far. But without further ado, let's talk about this wrap-up and TBR, and we'll move on from there. So what did I read in July? Well, in terms of books, I read The Parable of the Talents, which is the sequel to Parable of the Sower. Pretty great sequel, a great book in general, building off a lot of what Octavia Butler did in Parable of the Sower. Laura Olamina was able to establish the community that she wanted, and she's spreading the message of Earthseed, but there's still a number of obstacles that get in her way, including a fascist president who's like, "Make America Great Again," which we've certainly heard that before and continue to hear it in this day. And there's just a lot of great things about this series. The message of Earthseed, change is God. We need to work together as a species, and sometimes that requires having a goal to fight for, going to space. Like, obviously, we need to take care of each other on the planet in the here and now, but we need a goal to prevent us from becoming stagnant as a species. And I can see a lot of us becoming stagnant because I don't think climate change is the goal that some people would hope that it is, of fighting and helping the people carry on. But there's a lot of fascinating things in the series, and unfortunately Octavia Butler died before she could finish a third or even rest of the books that she had wanted to write. There is a sort of collection of her writings on Parable of the Trickster and the other books that she wanted to write in this series but never finished. I would love to explore that in the future, just to see more of where she was going and talk about that and what the series could be. It's just really unfortunate because I think a third book could have really rounded this trilogy out, or even more books in the series could have rounded it out and created something that's a standard in science fiction, a standard in just sort of what humans are capable of and whatnot. I also read Elena Knows, which I got from my local library. I thought it was boring. Probably not much to talk about there. The sort of narration coming from someone who has had a mental health disorder. I think it might have been dementia or something like that, Parkinson's, but a biased narrator in that regard. That's interesting, but the rest of the story wasn't that great. I should also say, if I didn't say already, Parable of the Talents is best of the month in terms of books. But I also read the Spawn Compendium, which was super good. Love the art. Todd McFarlane is a compelling writer. Sometimes he can be a little bit annoying, but he's still pretty good. And Spawn is a fascinating character, and I especially like how issue 50 ended. I won't spoil it here, but definitely go out and seek it. And I can't wait to get to Compendium 2 whenever that is down the road. I also read The Prince of West End Avenue by Alan Eisler, if I'm pronouncing that right. I thought it was pretty good. I read that on the airplane, and it was a very compelling read there. I think the story kind of meandered as it went on, less and less focused, and that really hurt it. But I do like the story of Otto in there. It's pretty well written there. And then I also read Hana-Kimi Volume 1 for You in Full Blossom. It's a manga about a girl who transfers to an all-boys school, pretends to be a boy in order to get closer to a track star. I thought it was kind of similar to She's the Man, although Hana-Kimi came out first. Although you could argue that Shakespeare came out first, and they're all sort of playing on Shakespearean ideas. But it's fun. I don't think there's a lot to write home about in terms of what it's trying to say, but I do think it's pretty silly, and also it does seem to embrace LGBT culture pretty well, which is what you like to see, and not just making homophobic jokes or something like that. I also read a number of short stories, including Keys by Carol Shields, which I thought was pretty good. A very interesting style where it shifts from character to character as it goes on, sort of being like a key of itself, and focusing on keys as it goes along. A lot of fun. The Gold Bug by Edgar Allan Poe, which I thought was boring. Edgar Allan Poe had also written Murder in the Rue Morgue, which is a detective story, and this follows that sort of vein where a character is explaining the mystery, but it's sort of like told at you rather than it's sort of being discovered upon. And I think that's where Poe goes wrong with his detective mystery stories, because with like The Cat or The Raven or the Telltale Heart, those feel more well written, more natural than these two stories. So Poe might have been one of the first to touch upon the detective or mystery story, but he certainly didn't do it the best, unfortunately. And then I also read A Party Down at the Square by Ralph Ellison. I had previously read Ellison in The Invisible Man, which was a fantastic story touching upon race, which this story does as well. This might be the best of the month because it's a story of a lynching told from the perspective of a boy, and you really see the inhumanity of people. Like a woman dies from a down power line in this story, and they don't really care. They just go back to the lynching. The people in the story are bloodthirsty. Is that what's going to happen to the boy in this story who's witnessing all of this, where they'll just see lynchings as normal, or is something going to change down the road? Not very optimistic in this day and age, but there's a lot worth talking about with that story, so I highly recommend that you go and seek it out. You can refer to my video, and I think I put a link to it in the description. And then I read a number of poems for July which had LGBT themes, or they were by LGBT writers. Go check out that. It's always important to read LGBT writers, and it was a period of pride, and now that has since ended, but I probably will most likely still be exploring LGBT writers as I find them. Now, what do I intend to read in August? As I said before, it's pretty heavy with graphic novels and comics. I think just because those were waiting in the wings. But I'm currently reading The Return of Superman, the third part of the Death and Return of Superman arc. It's a lot better than the second story, that's for sure, where the funeral was a real downer. Everything was kind of boring, and then they just brought Superman back pretty quickly, and I don't think that's good writing, in my opinion. I think they should have let Superman stay dead for longer, and you could have explored more about the DC universe and maybe why it needed Superman before bringing it back, and they don't really do that here. It just seems like a quick publicity stunt, and that's not real art, in my opinion. But I also want to read Black Hole and The Arrival. Both were on my 2025 TBR. Looking forward to that. And I picked up a graphic novel from a extremely pro-Palestinian bookstore, pro-Palestinian liberation in Vancouver, called Massey's. Really good, very interesting people there. It's called You Must Take Part in the Revolution, about people from Hong Kong in the near dystopian future. that's all I really know about it, but it seemed interesting when I checked it out. And related to that, I also picked up The Essential Dykes to Watch Out For by Alison Bechdel. This isn't really like her two other graphic novels, Fun Home or The Secret to Superhuman Strength, which I've read before. Rather, it's more a collection of her comic writings from the series that she wrote. So I might talk about that, I might not. It all depends on if there's like a lot sort of holding it together, or if it's just sort of episodic in nature or something like that. So yeah, look out for that. I also want to get to Into the Wild by John Krakauer. That was on my 2025 TBR, and that's also a nonfiction story, which I had wanted to get to this year, because I don't read a lot of nonfiction, at least willingly. A number of library reads that I get from my local library, and Lost Apothecary. Don't know what it's about, but I think it's one that my friend Bevan gave me once they moved to India and sent me a bunch of books. So that should be interesting, and maybe it might end up being one of the my essential must-reads of 2025 or something like that. There's also a number of short stories that I want to get to by Laura Numeroff, Piri Thomas, and F. Scott Fitzgerald. F. Scott Fitzgerald is interesting because I didn't know that he wrote short stories. I was only familiar with The Great Gatsby, which I think a lot of people are familiar with. They might have heard, at least in Western culture. I don't know about Eastern culture or anything like that. But I really want to check out some of Fitzgerald's short stories, and maybe I might also talk about The Great Gatsby on the channel, because I read that in high school and I haven't read it since, so my perception of it might change, and there's always probably a lot worth discussing from that book there, so look out for that maybe in the near future. And then there are a number of poems that I want to get to. I'm not specifically looking for LGBT writers now that we're in August, but that I'll probably still encounter those type of writers based on where I'm able to find my poetry from. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the wrap-up and TBR for July and August. So looking forward to all the cool things that I have planned, and I very much enjoyed what I read in July. If you have any recommendations, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you, especially if you have something that you think I might enjoy or might fit with this channel's theme. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that other people can find out about this channel or these books that they don't already know. Until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and August-based travels. Farewell.